hello, welcome everyone, and welcome back to all the revolutionaries. A new video and a new topic, or let's say a new chapter. We'll be covering Unit 9 or Chapter 9 of General Psychology from the BA course from IGNOU or IGNOU University. The name of the chapter is Cognitive and Moral Development. So we'll be starting this chapter in a rather unique and you can say new way that I just found out about through a YouTube video. First, we'll read about all the major important topics and their subtopics. If we won't read about them, we will just read their names. That's it. So first, we will go through all the chapter and read all those important topics and their names, like theories of cognitive development. So first of all, we'll be starting in this chapter with theories of cognitive development, which include Jean Piaget's theory. Jean Piaget's theory has some stages. Stage 1 is sensory motor stage, stage 2 is pre-operational stage 3 is concrete operation stage, and stage 4 is where was it, formal operational stage. After Jean Piaget's theory comes Vygotsky's theory. Yeah, his name is Vygotsky or Vygotsky, you can pronounce it either way. So Lev Vygotsky was a Russian psychologist and he was in the same time as Jean Piaget. So it includes concepts like more knowledgeable others, zone of proximal development, ZPD, scaffolding. Right, then after all these theories of cognitive development comes moral development. So first we'll read about cognitive development, then we'll read about moral development. Moral development includes theories again, and first of which is Kohlberg's theory. So Kohlberg's theories contain some levels, as we can see. Level 1 is pre-conventional morality, level 2 is conventional morality, and level 3 is post-conventional morality. And that's all. So first read this, let us sum up. In this unit, different thoughts and theories regarding cognitive development were covered. This unit starts with the meaning, characteristics of life, cognitive development. Then we discussed Piaget's and Vygotsky's theory of cognitive development. In the last section, we talked about moral development with the help of Kohlberg's theory. So first we go through the questions as well, so we get a feel of what the chapter is about. What do you understand by cognitive development? Write a note on the stages of cognitive development proposed by Jean Piaget. So we know that the first theory was of Jean Piaget in cognitive development. What do you mean by schema, assimilation, accommodation, adaptation? We'll read about them in Jean Piaget's theory. What do you understand by zone of proximal development? So we read about this zone of proximal development in Vygotsky's theory, right? How this concept is related to the concept of scaffolding. Scaffolding was also in Vygotsky's theory, if I'm not wrong. Explain different stages of moral development explained by Kohlberg. Okay, so I recommend that you read the glossary first as well, but without wasting any more time now, we'll start with the basics, the starting of the chapter. And now that we've gone through this, I don't think we really need to go through each concept here. We just need to read from our notes, but still. Jean Piaget's theory. Piaget's stage theory describes the cognitive development in children. Cognitive development involves changes in cognitive processes and abilities. In Piaget's view, early cognitive development includes processes based upon actions and later progresses into changes in mental operation. So I know you didn't get anything out of this, you didn't understand a thing. Now I'll go on about explaining them. So, chapter 9, cognitive and moral development. First of all, the most important concept that's going to be throughout this chapter, which you won't understand a single thing, is obviously going to be cognition and cognitive or mental processes. So, what exactly is cognition first? And how do we relate it to, what is cognitive development? I mean, all these theories about cognitive development, right? But what exactly is cognitive development itself? So cognitive development comes from cognition, or say cognitive processes. Now cognition is related to your mind. If I say it in the layman language, in the pure basic most basic language, then I would say that it is something that is related to mind, or all the mind related activities are cognitive activities. So cognition is directly equal to mind or brain. But if you go into a little bit more detail, it's something more than that. It refers to the collective mental processes. So cognition is more like a name given to a group of different mental processes. Okay, it's like a name given to several processes. Like in just to explain, it will just, oh, where's that whiteboard? Where's that whiteboard when you need it? Yes, here it is. Yeah, so cognition would be something like what? Just let it load. So let's say that there is this process, then there is this mental process, then this mental process, this mental process, this mental process. All of these are connected to each other. There are several mental processes, like, right? So there are hundreds and thousands and maybe more of mental processes. They are all connected with each other. With each other, one is going through here, here, here. So they are all interconnected. But when we group them, all of them, when we create a group out of them, we create a group of them, then we name this group as what? As cognition. Man, my writing is oh yeah, yeah, that's a G. That's actually G, and this is a T. So we name them as cognition. Now this group as a whole is known as cognition. One single, so if you point out one single thing, this is not cognition. No, it's not. You take out one other single or even two of them, that would not be called as cognition. When you take all of them as a whole, only then will it be called as cognition, right? So cognition is a group, is the name given to the group of mental processes involved in what. So what are these, what do these mental processes actually do? What are they involved in? They are involved in the acquisition, that is acquiring of knowledge and understanding of the world around us. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that all these mental, all these different these mental processes, they are all here so that they can help us to understand this, this vast world, this vast world in front of us. All these mental processes help us to understand this vast world and to make sense of it, and then what is this world really about, what are we doing in this world, and how to do things, how to because when a newborn baby comes into this world, he doesn't really know what to do in this world, how to operate in this world. Okay, let's say that, I mean, it's almost impossible for you to understand this fact now, because you've been living in this world for so many years that you've forgotten the first feelings you got when you were born as a fresh newborn child. So just imagine something else. Imagine that you are in a world full of glue. Everything, everywhere there is completely glue, glue, glue. Like the whole atmosphere, the whole world is full of glue, but there are still people living in it. So they would have come out with some other countermeasures to live in that world, right? Like there is gravity on earth. So if people didn't know how to balance themselves, how to walk upright, how to use force to walk themselves, then they would be just sitting at one place for their entire lives. But we found out some countermeasures. We found out that if there is gravity on this earth, then we just need to balance ourselves. Okay, we just need to balance ourselves like this and move our feet, move our hands like this, and in that way we'll be able to walk. Okay, so they formed a kind of this kind of angle, or this kind of particular posture, this kind of particular stance will help them walk against gravity, and they need to use force to resist gravity. So all these basic principles, I mean, a child, when it comes into this earth, he doesn't know anything at all, right? He doesn't know how to walk, how to talk, how to make use of his muscles, because this world is completely new to him. But all these processes, all these cognitive processes, slowly help him to understand this world, to make sense of this world, and how to interact in here as well. And that is why it is so important. That is why cognitive processes are so important. Like they are the basic most part of our lives. Acquisition of knowledge, and obviously they help us to acquire knowledge, because without knowledge you won't be able to do much things by yourself. I mean, some of the things you can do by constant practice or constant trial and error methods. Like you try to do something and you weren't able to do that, so you tried again and again until you found the right method to do it. But you can't do this with all the things, so you require knowledge. Knowledge, like from someone who has already done some kind of these things, and he can tell you, or he can show you the right way to do it without going through the whole process countless times yourself. Now, what are cognitive and mental processes? So, this is cognition. Cognition was the name of the group, which includes all the cognitive processes. But what exactly are cognitive processes? So, cognitive or mental processes, they are basically the same thing. These are the processes involved in cognition. So, these are all the processes. I mean, these are basically interrelated. What is cognition? The name of the group that includes all the cognitive processes. What are cognitive processes? All the processes that are in the group of cognition. Okay, so basically they're the same thing. But here, when I give you the example, that's the main thing in this cognitive or mental processes. So, what are the examples of cognitive processes? What can cognitive processes be? These are processes like thinking, like observing, memorizing, and experimenting. Obviously, and there are several others. I forgot to write etc here, etc. So there can be several other mental processes as well, which I couldn't name right then. So that's why. So these are your mental processes. Now we can move on with the actual theories, because we understand the basic concept what these theories are talking about. So these theories are talking about the cognitive development. Cognitive development means development of the cognition. Okay, cognitive is just a kind of form of cognition, for second form, third form, something like that. So it's just used here to be used in a sentence. Cognitive and cognition are the same thing. So cognitive development means development of the cognition. And what is cognition? A collection of the mental process. So cognitive development is directly equal to development of all the mental processes, that is development of thinking, observing, memorizing, experimenting. Their development is directly equal to cognitive development. Or you can say that cognitive development is nothing other than the development of mental processes or cognitive processes. So, what does Jean Piaget's theory state about this in here now? So, Jean Piaget's theory, cognitive development simply means a positive growth in cognitive processes and abilities. So, a positive growth, of course, development is always positive. Or so I think so, it should be. Anyways, cognitive, once again, I'm telling you what cognitive means. Yeah, I forgot to mention one point. Cognitive means of or relating to or involving conscious intellectual processing. So it means it is related to your conscious brain and not your subconscious or unconscious mind. It is related to brain, and brain is always conscious. Okay, that's mind. When we talk about the subconscious and the unconscious, that's not exactly your brain, that's what we call mind. Mind and brain are, yeah, different. Mind is like kind of a hypothetical or concept, while brain is a physical, realistic concept, a physical concept just. And mind is more like an abstract constant, not constant, what am I saying, concept. So, according to Piaget, early cognitive development involves processes based upon actions, which later turn into changes in mental operations. So, Piaget basically said that first, when the cognitive development has only started, okay, when it's in its initial, in the first stages, that is, so cognitive development starts as soon as you are born. So it basically what Piaget is trying to say here is that when you are very young, when you are an infant, at that time your actions turn into your mental operation. So now that we are all big and adult now, grown up now, first we think about things and then we do them, right? So first you had a thought and then you did it, and then you realized, okay, whether it was right or not. Or you basically thought about all the consequences, all the bad and good effects of your actions. But when we are really small, when the cognitive development is in its initial stages, so at that time first you do an action and then it turns into a mental operation, into a mental thought. So first you will, maybe you will take something and you will throw it, and then the kind of reaction you'll receive will become your thought. So that if I do this thing, then this will happen. Now when you're big, you will first think that if I take my phone and I throw it on the floor, then the phone will break. So you've done all this in your mind, right? But when a child is in its initial stages of development, when a child is really small, an infant, what he will do is first he will take the toy or the phone just let's take the same example. First he will take the phone, he will throw it, he won't have a thought about it, he won't think about it, he will just kind of instinctively he will just take the phone and throw it on the floor. And after it has broken down, then it will come into his mind that if I take phone and if I throw it on the floor, like if this, if I make this movement and drop it or throw it on the floor, then the phone will break. So the child didn't know before that if he throws the phone on the floor it will break. It only knows after it has already done it. This is the major difference between a child's cognitive development and adult's cognitive development. The adult first processes or does everything in his mind, in his brain, and later gives action to it. But a child first acts on it, first acts on his impulses, and later gets to know of that complete process of the what the consequences or what the reaction it would be of that particular act, of the result. Yeah. Piaget's theory includes 9 key concepts that explain how individuals acquire knowledge and understanding as they develop. These are as follows. So, Piaget has 9 concepts. So, if you remember that we read about schema, assimilation, accommodation, and no, we didn't read about adaptation in the questions. When we first read about the question, they were asking about what these things are: schema, assimilation, adaptation, and accommodation. So now we'll understand what these are. So these are, wait, 9 key concepts that includes, okay, let us just check it again. So here we are at Jean Piaget's theory. Yes, so they only have mentioned here 5 key concepts, whereas I have written 9 key concepts. So either I didn't explain all the 9 key concepts because they weren't necessary, or I wrote it by mistake. As far as I know, I think I wrote this 9 key concepts here, not mistakenly, but on purpose. Okay, I wrote it on purpose. So there have to be, 9 key concepts, but only 5 out of them are explained. So we'll also only cover 5 of these. First is schema. These are mental frameworks or broad. I mean, now this is really a pain in the, yeah, right there, to explain all of these concepts because they are really hard to explain. They are kind of easier to understand but hard to explain. Maybe that's why I really found it so hard to learn them also. So let's start with schema. Schemas are mental framework or broad mental structures through which we judge and make sense of new information that we perceive. Okay, so just as this definition says that these are mental frameworks or broad mental structures. Okay, so these are kind of like structure, broad structure. So like let's say that I created this kind of broad structure here. Okay, this structure includes some things. Let's say that this is a structure, the basic structure, which includes some things, which includes a few things. And let us, just imagine it to be a kind of like a structure that represents your brain's understanding, its capacity, and all the knowledge that it has. That, let's say that it represents your brain's knowledge, that all the knowledge up until now that you have acquired regarding a particular thing, let's say regarding animals, for instance, or books. Let me see which example I have taken here. Yeah, so we've taken the example of book. So let's say that your brain has acquired knowledge regarding books, and if you want to represent it physically, this is how it will be represented. Books, right? Yeah, so your brain has acquired some knowledge. Let's say that you are a 7 or 8 year old child, and your brain has some information about books. Okay, obviously you've heard about books. Maybe you've read a few as well, or you've read some concepts or some quotations, some paragraphs from some other adult person. Okay, he taught it to you, or something like that. So let's say that this is a representation, a physical representation of all the information that you have regarding books. Okay, so this is a kind of basic structure. This is a kind of basic structure that you have created inside your mind, and based on this you will read, you will judge all the other books that you ever come across, that you read. So you have a part of some information regarding books right here, some information right here, some information right here, or here. Okay, so this is kind of, like, you haven't actually made sense of all this information, this kind of uh, uncategorized information, or information that hasn't been properly assessed or processed. So you have, this some distinct parts of information regarding books inside your brain, and this is its basic structure. So whenever you come across, let's say you come across a new book, so you will judge that book. So you have read that book, or you've started read this book. So you will or everything that you read inside this book will be processed through this schema. Will go into this schema, it will be processed through these different information that you have regarding the books. It will go through this part here, then it will go through this part, it will go through this part, it will go through this part, and finally all of this will be processed, and you will make sense of this new book. Okay, that what is this book about, what it was about, did it match with the previous book that I have read about, did it match with the previous information that I read regarding books. Okay, so all of this will be tested through the information that you already had regarding books. So a schema can be said to be a kind of a broad framework like a basic structure through which you judge other things. I know it's really kind of tough to explain it. So I highly would appreciate if you wrote down in the comments any concept, any topic that you didn't understand, and we can discuss it, or I can try to make a separate video on it, because these schemas, all these things are really tough. These are mental frameworks on broad mental structures through which we judge and make sense of new information that we perceive. Okay, let's say, for example, one schema that most humans may have is that books are good and they give us useful and healthy information. Okay, so let's say that a child of 7 or 8 years old has only read all the good books, or has only read praises about books, that books are good, books are useful for this, books are useful for that, books are useful for this and that, and all that kind of nonsense that we usually perceive with books. So whenever we see a new book, okay, so let's say that the child sees a new book that he hasn't read before, so we'll try to judge it according to our this schema. So this was our schema. So the schema, what is the schema is that books are good and they give us useful and healthy information. This is the basic structure that we have created, based upon all the information that uh, we have about books until now. Okay, so you have some information regarding books, and you have created a kind of structure. You have, added all of that information into one. Let's say that you received some information about books from here, some information from here, some more information, some more information, and you group all of them into one. You take a, let's say that you sum up all of them into one, and when you create a group out of them, sum up all of them into one, this is what becomes your schema. Okay, schema is kind of, it consists of basic and unvalidated information, unprocessed information. So whenever we see a new book, any new book that we haven't read before, we'll try to judge it according to our this schema, and would naturally believe that this book is full of useful and informative text as well. So it means that whenever you come across a new book, So it's basically like when you come across a new thing, you try and judge it with the information that you previously have about that thing or something similar to that. Okay, that's how you try to make sense of new information or new things you come across. So, second is your assimilation. This is the name of that act through which we incorporate new information and experiences into our existing schemas. So it's like you have a basic structure of information, but it's not complete. Okay, it's half complete structure, but over time you would like to add more and more information in order to complete it, right? So this process through which you add new information into your previous or already known information is known as assimilation. For example, if a person has only read storybooks all his life, then he'll most probably have a schema that all books are only storybooks. Okay, so let's say that I don't know if you've heard about this tale. It's not exactly a tale, it's just kind of, don't even know how to categorize it. But they say that if a person that kheer, uh, I'm sure most of you know what kheer is. So let's say that a person was eating kheer for the first time in his life, and by mistake someone put salt into it. Then what kind of kheer will he be eating? He will be eating salty kheer, right? Then let's say that the next time he sat on down to eat kheer, again someone by mistake put salt into his kheer. So he has eaten kheer two times in his lifetime, and each time he ate a salty kheer. So what would his schema be? What will he start believing? He would start believing, or his schema will form, that kheer is a salty dish. Okay. However, everyone knows, we all know that kheer is actually a sweet dish and not a salty dish. But that person's schema is now that kheer is a salty dish. Okay, it's not a sweet dish, it's a salty dish. So even if you try to tell him that no man, kheer is sweet, it's not salty, he will try to contradict you. He won't believe you. He say that I've tasted it myself and it's a salty dish, it's not a sweet dish. And even if you can make it both ways, but kheer is supposed to be a sweet dish. So if it comes out salty, then that's of course by mistake. So in the same way, if a person has only read storybooks up until now, like he has read only 10 books or 15 books throughout his life, and all of them have been on, all of the books that he came across were storybooks, by let's say by any chance, then what will his schema be? His schema will be that all the books in the world are only storybooks. This will be his information regarding books. Okay, I mean, he doesn't know much about books, but all that he knows is that all books are only storybooks. But let's say that one day he comes across a book about forming good habits and he reads it. Then it will form a conflict with his existing schema that all books only contain stories. So this will form a conflict with his what was his schema. So his schema is that books are only storybooks, but now he is reading a book that is not a storybook, so it won't match up with his previous information. Okay, so his previous information is something else, but now he is encountering some other information. So this is not according to the previous information. Okay, so this is in a conflict with his existing information, and existing information about a particular thing is schema. That's it. Okay, so the basic information or the existing information that you have about a particular thing is the schema of that thing. To really shorten it up and to explain it in very basic sense, this is what schema is. So in this case, he will add new information to the schema. Okay, so now that he knows that not all books are only storybooks, there are books on other subjects as well. So he will add this information into his previous information. Okay, previous information that all books were storybooks only. But now he comes across new information that all books are not storybooks. Okay, so he needs to add this information to his previous information. Some are written on lifestyle or habit formation as well. So now he knows that not all books are storybooks, some are written on lifestyle and habit as well. I mean, he hasn't read about different kinds of genres of books or different kinds of books. So now he believes that there are maybe only two kinds of books. I mean, he can form any kind of conclusion. So you can go with both conclusions. That's how written both of them, I think. uh, not So new information, not all books contain stories only, some are written on lifestyle habit formation as well. So one schema that he can change it into, by adding new information, he can add this new information into his existing schema, that not all books contain stories only, some are written on lifestyle or habit formation as well. Okay, so this is a bit of new information added, and he can also take a more broader view of this, and he can have a better understanding of this fact, and in fact change his schema to that not all books are storybooks only, and they can be written on other topics or subjects as well. I mean, they aren't just limited to storybooks or to lifestyle or habit formation. I mean, he can kind of take this view that if books can be written of that, I only knew that books were storybooks, but now I see that books can be written on lifestyle or habit formation. So why can't books be written on other subjects as well? Maybe I'm just not aware of them, and books are written on other subjects as well. Okay, so in this case, he will change his schema, or he will add this new information to schema, that not all books are storybooks only. They can be written on other subjects as well. Or that books contain stories, lifestyle, habit formations, and etc. and other things. This can be his schema as well. So he can form different schema according to his understanding. This process of adding new information into an existing schema is known as assimilation. So assimilation is nothing but the name of a process. Okay, so it's the name of a process. Just hold. So here you had some, let me quickly erase this. So let's say that this is, you had some schema. Okay, so this contains some pieces of random information or incomplete information about some particular topic. So this is your schema. It's just a kind of, we're trying to take into physical representation. Schema does not actually have any physical representation. Okay, schema has no physical representation. We're just assuming it. Let this thing be a schema. Let this thing be an assumed physical representation of our schema, and this be, let's say that this is some new information. So incorporating or adding this new information, this information is related to this schema. Okay, that there, let's say that this is another kind of schema, this is, let's say, a different kind of schema. Okay, this schema is on books. This schema is about books, because schemas are about different thing. Okay, schemas are basic structures of information, and they can be about several, numerous, unlimited topics, unlimited subject. And this schema is, let's say, about shoes. Okay, one schema is about books, one schema is about shoes, and the person encounters some new information which is related to books. Okay, this new information is related to actually books. So this new information can only be added to the schema of books and not to the schema of shoes. Okay, this cannot be added to the schema of shoes. This can only be added to its relevant schema. Okay, it's not like you get some new information regarding books and you start comparing it with shoes. Okay, you only compare similar things, right? So this information regarding books can only be compared with your previous information regarding books and not regarding shoes, right? So this thing is important, that information will be added to its relevant or its significant schema. So this new information regarding books, when it is added to this schema and made a part of it, now this process of adding this new piece of information into your previous group of information, this process is known as assimilation. Okay, and you don't need to remember you don't need to even know what exactly the process is, how you exactly do it, because that is very, very advanced. And to most of us, this process happens automatically. Okay, so if you want to really study it in deep, I don't think you'll even find it anywhere easily. But this process happens automatically. You don't need to actually do something, yeah, like make some kind of poses, read some particular thing. It happens automatically. Whenever you come across some new information which is in conflict with the previous information, you will add new information into the previous information automatically. Okay, you don't need to do anything particular, stand in a particular pose, think about something particular. It happens automatically. Right, so if I give you a basic example, let's say that you go to a tea stall every day to drink tea. Okay, and you were unaware of the fact that the tea seller also sells pakoras. Okay, or sweets, some kind of sweets. So one day you saw that a guy asked for some sweet and the tea seller gave him some sweet. So you asked the uncle that you provide sweets as well. Then the guy says, yeah, I also sell sweets with this tea and I've been doing it for so many years already. So you were unaware of this fact. Now you have become aware of this fact. Now what information you have? That the tea seller sells tea, that the tea seller sells tea and also sells sweets. Okay, you didn't have to do something particular to remember this. Okay, you just need to remember this information, that the tea seller sells tea plus sweets, and this is done automatically by your memory. Okay, you don't have to do anything. It's like just learning something new, just knowing about something new. But in psychology, if you go deep down, then we will call this process of adding this new information as assimilation. It's very basic stuff, very very basic stuff. And it happens in your everyday life. Now moving on to accommodation. It is the act, technique or process of altering or modifying our existing schemas. Now this is a bit more advanced or a bit difficult, not difficult exactly, a bit like more affecting, yeah, affecting would be a better word, more affecting than assimilation, because in this case you have to change the basic structure of the schema, the very basic structure. You have to either modify it or alter it, or for altering or modifying existing schemas and not simply adding something to it. So it's not like see, let's like this is your schema, okay, then you added something to it, so it became like, what, this is just a assumed physical representation once again. So your new schema became like this. Okay, so this is simply adding some new information. But in this case, if your schema is like this, then you use the technique of assimilation, accommodation, was it right? Yeah, accommodation. Then if you process if you if you have to apply accommodation, then it will change the very basic structure of the schema. It will be like, if the original schema was like this, then the next schema could be like this, or it could be like this. So what I'm trying to say here by denoting these shapes is that the basic structure of the schema itself is changed in accommodation. Now again, accommodation too happens automatically whenever you come across such a situation. So it's not like you have to stand on one leg and chant some mantras and do something. It's nothing like that. So assume, now example, of course, assume that someone has a schema where a person believes. So schemas can be your beliefs or your existing information regarding. Okay, so to sum it up to some schema, it would be existing, a set of existing information regarding a particular topic. That's what schema is. Assume that someone has a schema where a person believes that only books provide. Oh, I've written it two times. That only books provide education, but one day he comes across, let's say that his schema is that books are the only things in this world that can provide education. Okay, this is his schema. But one day he comes across a video on YouTube where a teacher is teaching some chapter or explaining a topic. So in this case, it conflicts with the basic structure of the schema. Because till now he had believed that only books can provide education, but now he sees that some video is also providing education. Okay, and let's say that one other day he sees that a podcast has been created to teach school students. So this is definitely in conflict with his basic structure of schema, right? That his schema was that books are the only thing in this world that can provide you education. Okay, this was his belief up until now. But when he sees some YouTube video, some podcast, then it's a really great conflict, that he said that books are not the only thing. Okay, so what was the main point of his schema? You need to identify the main point. So the main point of schema is only books. Okay, that nothing except books provide information. So if you want to add something new information to this schema, you will have to change its very basic structure, and its basic structure is formed with only books. Okay, so you will have to change only books to books too, or books also. We'll see how it changes. These things are clearly in conflict with his existing schema's basic structure itself. So he will modify it as books are one of the sources of education, or books are not the only source of education. Okay, so previously his whole schema was based upon books, but now he sees that books are not the only thing, there are other things as well. So he will have to change the very basic structure. He will have to change the books thing itself, that books are not the only things. I hope you get it. Okay, it's not really difficult. Or take another example where the person has an existing schema that all creatures that walk on all fours are mammals. So creatures that walk on all fours are mammals. This is his schema or his belief. Belief formed according to your known information. Then whenever the person comes across any new creature that walks on all fours, he will interpret it in accordance to his schema and will consider the new creature as a mammal, right? So whenever he comes across some creature he hasn't seen before, or but the creature is walking on all fours, so what will he think? He will think that maybe I just haven't seen this creature, but this creature is also a mammal because only mammals walk on four legs. Let's say that he had only seen mammals and birds, so he'll think that if it was a bird, either it would be on two legs or it would be flying, but it's not doing either of that, and it's walking on four legs, so this has to be a mammal. However, if for some random reason the person finds out that the creature he saw was not a mammal but a reptile, because of course there are reptiles that walk on all fours as well. For example, the Komodo dragon walks on all the fours, and the chameleons, of course, they also walk on all fours, and lizards, yeah, except for snakes, I guess most of them do walk on all four legs. So now, considering he had never seen a reptile before, let's assume that he had never seen a reptile before, or let's say that a scientist came there and told him that the creature is a reptile, or that he saw the same creature somewhere in a book and found out from there. Now this new information is creating a conflict with his schema that all creatures that walk on all fours are mammals only. So this scheme, his very basic structure of the schema was that creatures that walk on all fours are mammals. So his main key point of the is that mammals, okay, that all four like all creatures walking on fours are mammals only. But now if he finds out that something else is also walking on four legs and it is not a mammal anymore, so he will have to remove the very basic thing from his schema, the mammal thing itself, okay, because he can't he can't say that all fours that walk on all fours are mammals and ye and this and that. Okay, he can't just keep on adding that are ye and ye, like there could be many other things as well. To solve this conflict, he or she will use a technique, process, or act, whatever we want to call it, of accommodation to modify this schema into not all creatures that walk on all four are mammals. Okay, he will either change it to that not all the creatures that walk on all four are mammals. Okay, like for example, a mammal can be a bat is a mammal, right? And it doesn't walk on all fours. Or creatures that walk on all fours may or may not be mammals. Okay, this can be a change of his schema as well, because he has seen now that mammals walk on all fours, but there are other creatures also that walk on all four legs. Or his other schema could be that creatures that walk on all fours are either mammals or reptiles. So let's say that now he is again a short-sighted person. He assumes or he believes that okay, there we have found another species that walk on four legs, but this could be it. There can be no more species who walk on all fours. So it is either mammals or reptiles. Okay, so he can form either of these as his schema. Like, right, I've highlighted it right here. Why isn't it? I mean, I haven't highlighted it, I just highlighted it. So these are the different kind of schemas that it can form. One, and this two, or this three here. This is the third schema. So you can form either of these three schemas, or maybe there could be even more that we don't really know about right now. I mean, I haven't written them, just that's all. Fourth is the equilibration, the name of the mental process or method through which we strike a balance between accommodation and assimilation. Now, this is a little tricky to understand. I won't say it's exactly difficult, just a bit tricky, a bit only. So, explanation. Whenever a conflict arises between an existing schema and some new information relating to that, then it will create a state of cognitive conflict. Okay, cognitive conflict is nothing but mental conflict. Mental conflict means conflict inside your brain, inside your mind. Like it doesn't exist physically. That's all cognitive conflict is. And stress and anxiety are obviously a result of any conflict. To solve this issue now, the mind will employ, so now you know why the techniques of assimilation or accommodation are used in any case. Like, why do we use it? Why does it happen automatically? It happens because otherwise we will feel stress and anxiety, and nobody wants to feel stress and anxiety. Okay, your mind doesn't want to feel stress, your mind doesn't want to feel anxiety, even though my parents keep giving it to me all the time, like, right, 24/7. to make new information match the schema. Okay, so where were we? To solve this issue, the mind will employ the techniques of either assimilation or accommodation, and sometimes both, to make the new information match the schema. Okay, so now the conflict will end only when the schema is equal to the new information. Okay, so it's like here it is the schema. So this is your schema. My poor hand, poor handwriting, because I'm using by writing a mouse. So if this schema is equal to what is equal to NW here represents new information, then there is no stress, no anxiety, equilibration is achieved. But if this schema is not equal to the new information, then there will be conflict and stress and anxiety. So what does the mind do? The mind wants to adjust it in such a way that this existing schema and new information are equal to each other. Okay, that they are equal to each other. This is what the mind wants to achieve, and in order to do this, it either uses assimilation or it uses accommodation, whichever is right at the moment. This whole process of using either of these techniques or both of these techniques in order to resolve cognitive conflicts as a whole is known as equilibration. So equilibration is nothing but the process of employing or making use of the techniques of assimilation or accommodation. It's like using one technique, like the name of the process through which you do something. Okay, like kicking a ball. Okay, so kicking the ball, and if you say that kicking the ball is, kicking the ball is definitely kicking the ball, but let's say if you say that the use of moving or the process of moving your foot and taking it to kick the ball is known as kicking the ball, if you could just name it in such a way. So this is what equilibration would amount to, that the process of your brain using either of these techniques, either of these processes, in order to resolve this conflict, in order to resolve this cognitive conflict, is what equilibration is. Okay, it's nothing really hectic and nothing really like hard to understand in this. It's just simply as employing some technique or employing some technique or some act in order to achieve a form of cognitive, I don't know, just like cognitive satisfaction, or just this conflict resolution. That's what equilibration is about. Equilibration is kind of like balance, creating a balance. So whenever the mind is in a balanced state, it will be tension, it will be stress free. Fifth, we come across now adaptation. Now adaptation, I think it's not probably given in the book, the fifth one, only four are given, but I did read about it, so I've just written it here. It can be considered as a quality rather than a technique or process, and it is inherent throughout the theory of Jean Piaget. Accommodation and assimilation are its two main parts. It simply means adapting to the new and unfamiliar environment. So adaptation isn't actually a part of it. Okay, it's just a kind of inherent quality. So why do we use either of these? Why do we use assimilation? Why do we use accommodation? Why does this conflict happen at all? This conflict happens because if we get some new information regarding something and it does not match with the previous information, then it means that we are not able to adapt to the new information, into the new environment or into the new situation, and we need to adapt in order to survive efficiently. Okay, so what is the brain's main purpose? The brain's basic purpose, the most important basic purpose of the brain is to help you survive. Okay, to help you survive. It can be either of the situation. If you were living in a stone age situation, then you would need to do some other things to survive. You probably wouldn't need to use so much of your brain as you need to do now in order to survive in this modern world. Okay, so in this modern world, you need to sharpen your brain, you need to have more wits about yourself, and that is how you survive in this world. In the stone age, you will need to focus more on your physical aspects in order to survive. So the main purpose of brain is to help you survive, and it does this through various processes, various techniques, various kinds of acts, and two of them are assimilation and accommodation, and these acts are used in order to resolve any conflict between your existing information and any new information that you come across. So now we move on to stages of cognitive development. Piaget believed that cognitive development also happens in stages. So it said that throughout your life, this process happens in several stages. Okay, like of course, all of these stages are divided into some specific time periods as well. Let's say that it starts with stage one, of course, as everything does. So stage one is sensory motor stage. Now try to make sense of these two words. What exactly does sensory and motor mean? If you know if there's a kind of person who's completely new to all these kind of things, so if he simply reads this word, he's unknown to psychology, he's never read this thing before, or he's never delved into psychology exactly. So let's say that a random person reads this word sensory motor, what kind of thing will he create inside his mind, what kind of feel would he have from these two words? It would be like sensory seems to be related to senses or sensing, and motor definitely means like motor abilities like walking, moving, these kind of abilities. So it feels like sensing your motor abilities. uh, let's see what exactly this stage is about, but through these two words you form a kind of sense that it could be related to feeling, getting a sense of your motor abilities. So this lasts from birth to 2 years, okay, ever since you are born to the age of 2. The infant starts to have a sense, of course, like just I was saying, I mean, I of course wrote it myself, but then I completely forgot what I had written in this chapter, in these notes. So I just, I'll just like the thing I told you about, like having a sense of your motor abilities, I did not read it from these notes, I completely concluded it from these two words of sensory motor. And the reason why I'm stressing this so much is that so you form this a kind of habit, you gain this ability to deduce things from a kind of from even from lack of information, say. So even if you have very limited amount of information, you're still able to deduce too much from that little information. That is why I'm stressing so much on creating a kind of in gaining information from these two words by yourself without first reading what this theory says or what this stage actually contains. And yeah, of course, this stage does contain what we were talking about. The infant starts to have a sense of his or her motor abilities and starts using them to feel and understand the world around him. Okay, so how do you, what is, like, what's the first thing that you do to understand anything about you? You feel it, right? You try to touch it, you try to feel it, what its texture is, what it exactly feels like to your skin. And through motor abilities this ability expands. Okay, so you're already touching everything around you, you're already touching everything, feeling everything around you, and that also is a part of motor ability. When you're moving your hand, that is a part of motor ability. It doesn't mean that you need to actually stand up and walk from somewhere to somewhere. Even if you're moving your hands, you're moving your fingers, you're moving your tongue, all of that is a part of motor ability. Motor ability just means moving. Okay, so you're moving your hand, that is motor ability. So you start making sense of things around you, yeah, like there's a kind of let's say there's a toy in front of you, so you'll try to grab the toy, you'll try to feel its texture, you'll move your hand all over the toy, you'll try to feel its shape, even though you can clearly see it, but you would like to feel that shape for yourself. You'll observe it, you'll be very curious about it, you'll try to like look at it from all the different angles. And so this is how you try and make sense of the world around. You'll try to move inside the house when you're so small, when you're from birth to 2 years, between this kind of age, you'll try to move around the house, touch things, grab a lot of things. Like at this stage, children have a lot of they're more inclined towards motor abilities, you can say. They'll try to grab your hand, they'll try to grab your fingers. Okay, children tend to grab your fingers at such a age. So this is because of this, because they're more inclined towards motor abilities in this stage. They want to make sense, they are trying to make sense of the world around them, because they're completely new to the world, they don't understand a thing. So they're trying to make sense of this world through their through this, through feeling them, through feeling it, or through walking around that place. To compare it with, you can say that when you get a new puppy or when you get a new dog into your house, so what does the dog do at first? It's really timid. Okay, it doesn't really want to move, it doesn't really want to get up. But when it does, it starts walking around everywhere, looking around everywhere. So you're smelling every place, right? So it's trying to it's trying to familiarize itself with the place. It's walking around, running around everywhere, trying to see every corner of the house. This stage begins with reflexes and ends with learning complex combinations of sensory motor skills. Okay, so what are sensory motor skills? Nothing but just your, like you gain a better knowledge of how to properly move your hands, how to twist your hands, how much flexibility you have, where you can reach. These kind of things, these kind of advanced things are sensory motor skills. Like you have a complete sense of your motor skills, that how much you can run, or if you can run at all, if or can't run, how properly can you walk, in what kind of places and what kind of roads can you walk. So this feeling of how skillful your motor abilities are, this is sensory motor skill, nothing complex. But this stage begins with reflexes. Reflexes, why am I using the word reflexes? Because in this stage, when you're moving your hand around, you're trying to touch, grab things, okay, you're not doing that very consciously, you're kind of doing it based on your reflexes, because you're feeling like it, you're kind of feeling like you're kind of having an urge to do it. It's not like you're consciously thinking about that I am going to grab this table, or I am trying to feel the surface of this table. It's just happening by itself, okay, and it's just fine, happening by itself, and the process is taking place itself. But as you start growing up, then you start doing this thing consciously, okay, then you start getting a better feel of the movement in your hands and the muscles that are required to move your legs, move your hands, and how strong they are. And then you start doing these things consciously. You will go to some you'll go to some table, you will go to some chair, and you would touch it, you will grab it, you will turn it around, because you want to, because you're curious to know about it, and not just because it's happening by itself, and because you're getting a really strong urge and you just can't deny that urge, you just can't drop it. It won't happen because of that. Now this stage is again further divided into 6 sub stages, and the first stage is reflex. So reflex is from 0 to 1 month. The child understands the environment purely through his or her inborn or innate reflexes, just I like explained just now. So it is during this stage that the child does things because of his instincts, because of his urges, because it's feeling like it without any reason. Okay, so it's like a kind of random feeling. He doesn't have any reason, he can't explain why it's happening. To his or her natural instincts, like it acts completely according to his or her natural instincts, like refraining from touching new and unfamiliar things, crying in the hands of some unfamiliar person, etc. So like when the child is in this stage, he wouldn't want to touch new things, okay. When some new person tries to approach the child, he might start crying. When some unknown person tries to grab him and carry him in his lap, he might feel it very unfamiliar, he might start crying again. Or some new thing or new toy is given to him, the child won't even probably look at it, okay, he won't touch it, he will try to refrain from touching it, he will try to refrain from coming into contact with it. But when he gets familiar, when he sees the thing again and again over a couple of days, then he will slowly approach it, slowly try to touch it, okay. This is in his instincts. Another two of such reflexes or instincts are obviously sucking and looking around everywhere. So nobody tells the child to suck his or her mom's breast in order to drink milk. Okay, nobody tells the child, nobody tells him that you need to do this or train him to do this. It's an instinct. It comes purely out of instinct. Okay, he does this because I don't know. I don't really know why he does this, but he does this because he knows that he has to, or maybe it's a kind of instinct. Just like I said, it's an instinct that he needs to suck on his mother's breast in order to drink milk in order to survive. And of course, looking around is the most basic instinct that any person, any animal has. Looking around, okay. Everybody looks around whenever you go into some new environment, some new place. You're constantly looking around, right? Because you're trying to familiarize yourself with that place. So second is the primary circular reactions. This stage is between 1 to 4 months. Now these are the first or earliest organized intentional actions performed by the infant. Okay, so these are the organized actions, and the first of these. Through these actions, the infant tries to create an automated response system. That means automatically reacting in a particular manner to a particular kind of stimulus. Okay, so in this stage, that let's say that something is hot, something is really hot, but the child doesn't know the feeling of touching something hot. So the child is like, kind of afraid to touch the same thing, but then he slowly approaches and touches it, and as soon as he touches, he suddenly feel that it's very uncomfortable, it's very hot, and he retracts his hand. Okay, so this has created a kind of, now this was a thought out action. Okay, it wasn't a reflex, otherwise the child would has completely, like, pushed his entire hand into that thing. Let's say that there is really hot water in front of him, and the child grudgingly on purpose touches it with only little finger. Now if this wasn't a thought out action, if this wasn't an organized action, the child would have just, smashed his hand right into that bowl of hot water and spilled it all over himself. But this was a thought out, an organized action. That's why he slowly, very, very scaringly, he touches it with only the tips of his finger, and as soon as he feels uncomfortable, he suddenly retracts it. Even though that retraction is an involuntary action, not involuntary, it was a kind of reflex action, but still, the starting action was thought out, right? And so this creates a stimulus. Now this creates an image in his mind that if I touch something like this, it will burn me. So let's say that this happens another time. The child again tries to test this theory, that is it really the thing, or was it only a one time thing. So the child does this again. Now even if at the second time the child is not convinced, he will do it a third time. Now on the third time, he's definitely convinced that if I touch something that is, that is leaving such wasps of air, and that is like that is giving off such a kind of heat when I put my hand near it, so I shouldn't touch such kind of things, otherwise my hand will burn. Okay, the child has created this automatic response. Now whenever he will whenever he will touch a thing, whenever he will touch a thing, he will automatically retract his hand, because his mind has, like when a child is very small, this information ingrains deep into his mind. So it's not like it's a reflex action that when you grow up and you touch a hot thing, you without even meaning to, you suddenly retract your hand. It's not like a thing of reflex action as is mostly told in the science books. In fact, it is a trained action. It is a trained action, but when you trained it, you were so small that now it happens even without your meaning to. That through years and years of training, or through training at such a crucial stage of your time, you have ingrained it so deep into your mind that now it happens automatically. Okay, it's like you keep on doing a thing again and again and again and again, and then it starts happening automatically. Then you don't even realize, and you're already doing it. Okay, it's a kind of that thing, or it's that kind of thing. Third is your secondary circular reaction. This is from 4 to 8 months. Child becomes more focused of the world and intentionally repeats actions in order to understand a particular response from them in order to understand them. Okay, I think I made another mistake somewhere around here. But the basic thing about it is that the child is more conscious of the world around him. He has kind of familiarized himself with the world and the people that surround him. Not completely, I wouldn't say completely, but to a certain extent. Now he isn't, fearful or scared of every other thing. Like when the child is new, he's constantly crying and crying and crying because everything is new to him, everything is dangerous. But now he feels a bit more secure than previously, a bit more secure. And now to understand this, let's go on with the example. If you have a pet at home and he notices or looks at the child. So previously the thing was to create some automatic response systems. Okay, some automatic response system. But in this case, what's different from primary circular reaction and secondary circular reaction is, in primary circular reaction, the child was creating some automatic responses that will happen without him even meaning to. But in secondary circular reactions, the things or the acts will happen, the responses will happen after thought out, after organized action. Even in later periods of life, it will happen after organized process reactions, organized processed actions. Okay, it's not like a kind of it won't come, it won't change into a reflex action as the primary circular reactions would. So example, if you have a pet at home and he notices or looks at the child, when the child touches it, then the child will touch the dog repeatedly over some intervals of time in order to confirm several reactions, two of which could be, of course, now child is really isn't that smart, so I'm just assuming that he would most probably confirm only one type of reaction, and that would be or maybe let's say that I'm assuming that he can confirm these basic two type of reactions as well. The first is the sensation of soft fur to his fingers and the pet or dog looking at him. The second is, of course, the pet or dog looking at him whenever the child touches him. So, in the first case, what happens is that the first action was a thought out voluntary action. But in the third stage, in the secondary circular reaction, in this case, the first action is an involuntary, is a it's not an involuntary. It's like a kind of chance incident. Okay, so by chance, let's say the child touches the dog, it's like a kind of a thing that can happen or that can't happen. It's not like a consciously done action, you can say. It's just like a random action, a random act. So the child just randomly touches the dog, but then he observes, after he has randomly done this, then he observes that the dog gave some kind of reaction. But now the child isn't sure what made the dog give such reaction. So to confirm or to test his theory, the child has formed a theory already that could it be because I was touching him. So the child will test his theory. He will again touch the dog. If the dog gives the same reaction, then his belief reinforces. The third time again, if the dog gives same reaction, now he will do this in small intervals of time. Okay, he won't do it like he's touching the dog again and again and again at the same time, and then he's thinking of receiving a reaction that would be exactly same as the previous ones. Okay, he will test this theory after intervals of time. We test our theories after some intervals of time to confirm its validity, right? To confirm that it is authentic. So in the same way, the child does this thing, and if the dog repeats the same reaction every time, now the child has formed child has formed a conclusion in his mind that if I do this, then the result would be this. Okay, that if I do this, then the result would be this. And this is not a reflex action. Once again, I repeat, the most basic difference between primary circular reactions, secondary circular reactions are primary circular reactions are or turn into reflex actions, whereas secondary circular reactions never turn into reflex actions. Fourth is your coordination of secondary reactions. Okay, now coordination between your secondary reaction. Where was secondary reaction? I don't know what secondary reactions are, but let's see. Now this stage is from 8 to 12 months. Child starts to develop a certain amount and kind of focus on specific objects, subjects, or topics or areas that are demanded of him either by himself or by others. That is, the focus of the child becomes more goal oriented. Okay, now the child isn't just like randomly looking around, touching around everything and everything like that. Now he's more like he wants to gain more knowledge or more experience or more familiarity with the specific thing, with a specific goal. Example, the child wants some toy from some place or maybe from the table. Then he will crawl towards the table, try to climb it, or start by holding it and get the toy. So the child develops a focus. Why did I give this example in here? Okay, I don't know why I gave this example in here. Maybe at that time I was thinking something different, and that was right according to that situation. But now I really can't understand it. But still, you get what I'm trying to say, that the child becomes more focused oriented, more goal oriented. His focus is on some particular specific things now. Yeah, for example, if we take the same example, then it's like that. Let's say that the child wants a specific toy, then he will try to he will focus his attention on that particular toy. Like at first, I'll just need to I'll just need to help you compare it with the previous action that the child does, otherwise you won't be able to make sense of it. So previously, if you give some toy to the child, even the child isn't really interested in any kind of toy, in any particular toy, no matter what kind of toy you gives it, he will just start throwing everything. He will just pick everything, throw everything around. Then again you give him the toy, again he'll pick everything, he'll throw it around. He doesn't form any sense, any kind of familiarization with the toy. He doesn't know what it is, what it does. He does not feel anything towards the toy. But over some time, when he starts gaining his when his cognitive abilities, cognitive function starts developing, then he will start playing with the toys. Maybe he will form a kind of bond with the toys, and now there's a specific toy that he really likes. And now this toy, now this is more goal oriented, more focused. That now he is more focused on some particular toy, on some particular thing. Okay, and now to get that toy also, let's say that he to get that toy, he forms a kind of he becomes more focused that I want that toy, I want it, no matter what it is. Okay, when like this thing starts increasing later years, the child gets really clinging to his parents and really like begging everywhere around for some specific toy. So the start of this situation starts from here. The starting is from here, that the child becomes more goal oriented towards some particular toy. Before you give him any toy, he doesn't care, but now he wants some specific toy, and in order to do it, he will do what he can. When he's so small, if the toy is just in front of him or in a table, he will try to get up or hold something to walk there and grab the toy. If the toy is out of his reach, like when the child grows up and most of the toys that he likes is in a shop and they need to buy it, then what can the child do in such a situation? He can't approach the shopkeeper and grab him that I want the toy, I want the toy. He will grab his parents. Okay, he knows that what he can do and what he can't do. So what he can do is he can try to persuade his parents. So this is what the child will do, and he will, in order to do this, he will try to employ any techniques. He will start crying, clinging. He won't move an inch without getting that toy. He will do all kinds of different dramas. Okay, so this is when the child becomes more specific topic oriented or goal oriented. I'll just remove this example from here. I really feel this example is kind of useless. Okay, so if I'm not wrong, maybe they start teaching potty training to their children at this age, from 8 to 12 months. Okay, and I don't really remember what parents expect from the child at this point, at this early. But parents are always expecting, always expecting something. The parents are always expecting you to walk among the skies when you've just born, when you're infant. Why aren't you strong enough to uproot all the trees, even at the age of 6 or 5? Your parents have such hypothetical demands and expectations. Fifth is your tertiary circular reactions. This is now from 12 to 24 months. Children start doing trial and error experimentation. Now, this is a really crucial point, or this is a really crucial time period in a child's life. So, children they start carrying out specific activities in a planned manner. Okay, they do it in a planned manner, that I will do this and after that I will do this, and like at this stage children start playing with Legos. Okay, like there are small Lego blocks, or there are some small kind of puzzle box in which you have to put the right shaped piece into that box. Okay, like there's a box with some missing pieces and they are of some particular shapes, and you are given those particular objects and you have to push them through the right hole. Okay, these kind of toys you must have seen them. So the child will try to do things in a planned manner, that first I will do this, then I will do this, then I will do this, in order to achieve some objective, of course. And he will also observe his errors, that what did I do wrong, why didn't this happen. He will start observing these things, and he will also try to remove them. This happens until they either reach their goal. So the child will keep on trying to do the same thing again and again in a different manner, in another different manner. If he isn't able to see his errors, then he will just keep on trying doing it again and again. In case he sees his error, he will immediately try to remove that error. He will try to remove that error and do the process again. Or if he can't do this error, if he can't notice the error, then he will just keep on trying to do it again in different ways, or the same ways again and again, until he either reaches his goal or becomes too frustrated to continue anymore. So both the things can happen. Either he successfully reaches his goal, or he becomes too frustrated. I don't want to do this. This is so difficult. This is so boring. Okay, so either of these things can happen, of course. Now for the sixth one, they exactly haven't given the age in here, but I'm assuming it comes in the same age limit as the fifth one. Early representational thought. Children begin to develop symbol object relationship. Okay, trying to denote objects through symbols. A child may stretch his or her hands and form a kind of circle with his fingers to denote that she or he wants to. Like when children start picking up their hands, and they'll start moving their hands around in some specific manners. Of course, we're not able to understand that, but the child is able to tell you through these symbols, through these through this kind of movements, that he wants toys, or he wants milk, or he wants something to eat. The child will start forming some kind of different hand gestures to denote or tell about some things that we aren't really able to understand. Okay, now there are several stages in it: fourth stage, fifth stage. But I think we'll continue with the stages with from stages two and all of that later on, because my throat is really not well and even my noses are almost full of snot. So I'm not able to continue. So we'll continue from stage two in our next video.